Geneva sparkled like a secret that only the rich could afford to whisper about. Inside the Grand Élysée ballroom, chandeliers glittered over crisp tuxedos and gowns dipped in gold. Laughter floated above the string quartet's elegant murmurs, and champagne ran smoother than truth. No one noticed the maid. Amara Lewis moved quietly between marble columns, balancing a tray of crystal flutes like second nature. Her posture perfect, her gaze low, her silence not born from shyness, but survival. Because in rooms like this, black girls from Louisiana didn't make ripples. They were expected to blend in, shine the floor, not the spotlight. So she did what she always did. Disappear. Until he walked in. The hush was instant. A subtle collective pause. Conversations thinned, postures straightened, and even the waiters took one breath longer than usual. Zayn al-Marani had arrived. Oil magnate, tech innovator, philanthropist, billionaire. A name that echoed in business magazines and closed-door government talks. And tonight, the keynote speaker of the World Investment Forum. He walked without entourage. No bodyguards, no press. Just presence. He didn't look around the room. He didn't need to. Amara didn't mean to stare, but her hands froze mid-pour. Not because he was handsome, though he was, in the kind of way that made you feel like you should apologize for looking. It was because of how the room rearranged itself around him, like even the air stepped aside. She didn't expect him to notice her. He didn't. But he walked right past her tray, brushed within inches, and paused at the podium. Silence fell. Then Zayn spoke. Not in English, not in French, but in Arabic. Fluent, powerful, commanding. It wasn't a greeting. It was a declaration. Amara blinked, because she understood every single word. His accent was formal Levantine, his grammar immaculate, but it was his message that made her blood run colder than the champagne in her tray. He wasn't talking about markets or forecasts. He was talking about perception. In rooms like this, he said, we speak about growth, innovation, change. Yet we fear anything we cannot pronounce. We pretend that unfamiliar tongues make a man dangerous, or worse, disposable. No one moved. Zayn continued, we build walls with our silence, but language tears them down. A ripple moved through the crowd, confusion, discomfort. Then he looked around slowly and asked in Arabic, does anyone here understand me? Silence. People shifted, looked to their translators, whispered into earpieces. But no one answered. No one, except the maid. Amara's voice rose clear and steady. I do. The room froze. She didn't mean to speak out loud. The words had slipped out of her like breath. But it was too late. Every head turned. Even Zayn. His gaze landed on her, truly landed and held. He studied her, not with surprise, but something sharper. Recognition your name? He asked in Arabic. She hesitated, then answered Amara Lewis. He nodded once. Amara, would you join me? She almost said no. Almost turned and vanished back into the curtain of invisibility where it was safe. But instead she walked. The tray stayed behind. Her silence didn't. The weight of her footsteps was drowned beneath a silence that could slice stone. Amara walked toward the stage like someone moving through a dream she didn't ask for. The crowd parted, not like they welcomed her, but as if they couldn't understand why someone like her would dare. A maid, in a borrowed uniform, speaking perfect Arabic. Zayn waited calm and unreadable. She stopped a few feet from him. The lights felt hotter here, brighter. Every breath of the audience held her name now, though they'd only just learned it. Zayn looked directly at her. Do you mind translating for those who couldn't follow? He asked, this time in English. Her throat tightened. She hesitated. Then she turned to the room and repeated his earlier words. In rooms like this, she said, voice steady, we speak of innovation, but fear what we don't understand. We build walls with silence, but language tears them down. A visible shift moved across the crowd, gasps, murmurs, a few claps from the far end of the room. One woman whispered, she's just a maid. Another man, a German venture capitalist, Amara, had once scrubbed scuff marks for said, who taught her to speak like that? No one dared answer. Amara wasn't finished. She turned to Zayn again, and without prompting continued in Arabic. You spoke of walls, she said. But walls don't always fall because of speeches. Sometimes they collapse because someone finally speaks back. Zayn's eyes flashed surprise, maybe even approval. He smiled, the first real expression he'd shown all night. I didn't come here to impress, he said, but I hoped I'd be understood. You were, Amara replied. By me, at least. He offered his hand, not as a man to a maid, but as an equal. She took it. The applause started small, one or two hands at the back, then more, then a wave. Not everyone clapped, but those who did stood up. And in the middle of it all, Amara stood next to Zayn al-Marani. No tray, no uniform. Just her voice and the sudden knowledge that nothing in her life would ever be the same again. Later that night, Amara was folding napkins in the employee hall behind the ballroom when Linda, the housekeeping supervisor, burst in, flustered and furious. What the hell was that? She snapped, slamming a clipboard on the counter. You embarrassed this entire hotel. Do you think billionaires come here to be lectured by staff? Amara didn't flinch. I didn't lecture, she said quietly. I translated. You showed off. I answered a question. Linda stared at her. You know we take pride in keeping staff invisible here. Amara looked at the starched napkin in her hand, then back at Linda. Maybe that's the problem. The door opened behind them. Zayn stood there. Linda turned pale. Mr. al-Marani, she began. I'd like a word with Miss Lewis, he interrupted gently. Linda scurried out, and for a moment the hallway was just them. I hope I didn't get you into trouble, he said. Amara tilted her head. Why would you care? Because you were the only one in that room who spoke my language. Not just Arabic. Truth. She blinked. You planned that. He shrugged. I hoped someone would answer. I didn't expect you. Silence. Then she asked, why bring language into a speech about finance? Zayn smiled. Because every deal starts with understanding. And yet most rooms like that one pretend that understanding only happens in English or French or the currency of power. I wanted to remind them otherwise. He took a step closer, and I wanted to see who'd dare reply. Her heart thudded. She didn't like the feeling being seen. It was easier when people looked past her. But he wasn't looking past her. He was looking directly in. I want to talk more, he said. Not here. Not now. But soon. Amara crossed her arms. Why? He hesitated, then said, because you reminded me that people don't just need a voice at the table. Sometimes the strongest voice is the one no one expects. And then he walked away. That night, in the solitude of her staff dorm, Amara sat on her narrow bed with a letter in her lap. Handwritten, sealed with gold. Inside a single sentence, will you join me in Riyadh 1 week from today? No title, no signature, just the weight of everything about to change. And the echo of her own voice still trembling inside her, I do. Amara had never flown private before. The jet smelled of leather and citrus. A woman in tailored navy placed a hot towel in her hands before Amara could even ask what to do with her coat. And when she looked down at the menu, the words were embossed in gold. It felt like a dream someone else was supposed to have. 1 week ago, she was folding napkins behind the ballroom. Now she was flying over the Mediterranean in a cream blouse and silk scarf Zane's assistant had gently suggested she wear for the climate. She didn't ask why. She didn't ask anything. But the questions roared louder than the jet engines. Why her? Why now? Why would the world's most powerful man invite a hotel maid to Riyadh? And why had she said yes? The sun in Saudi Arabia was not like Geneva's. It didn't shimmer, it scorched. Zane's estate sat on the edge of Riyadh like a vision from another world. A sprawling modern compound wrapped in glass stone and shadows. No gates, no guards, just silence vast and deliberate. She was led inside by a young woman in a linen tunic who spoke 5 languages fluently and smiled like she'd seen everything before. "You'll meet him shortly," she said. "Would you like coffee water, please?" Sparkling still or date-infused, Amara blinked. Still. The woman nodded and disappeared, leaving her alone in a room that smelled faintly of oud and possibility. Amara stood there unsure if she should sit, move, or run. And then the door opened. Zane entered. No suit, no entourage. Just a light tunic linen trousers and that same quiet gravity that had followed him into the ballroom. "Welcome," he said. "I still don't understand why I'm here," Amara replied before she could stop herself. He didn't flinch. "Good. That means you're not here for attention." She tilted her head. "What am I here for, Zane?" Walked past her, poured 2 glasses of water himself, and handed her one. "You said something that night," he began. "Something about walls not falling from speeches. That sometimes it takes someone speaking back." She remembered. He sat across from her, leaned forward. "I built my life speaking rooms into silence. Boardrooms, parliaments, ballrooms. I talk, they listen. And still I'm lonely." That caught her off guard. Zane continued. "I've met brilliant minds, loyal men, genius women, but very few people ever interrupt me. Very few hear what I don't say." Amara stared at him. And then she asked softly, "What aren't you saying right now?" Zane looked down at his hands. For the first time, the mask cracked. "That I envy you," he said. She laughed short, disbelieving. "You envy me?" He nodded. "Because you had nothing and still walked toward truth. I had everything and still built walls to hide behind it." Silence. Amara sipped her water, then asked, "And now," he said, "I want to start tearing them down." He looked at her. "But I don't know how. Not alone." The next few days blurred between impossibility and clarity. She dined beside ministers, walked through innovation labs, sat in on meetings with investors who barely acknowledged her presence until she translated an offhand Arabic phrase that no one realized had insulted an entire delegation. Zane had laughed. "They'll never underestimate you again." And yet, despite the grandness of it all, he never once treated her like a project, or worse, a performance. He listened, really listened. One night, beneath a canopy of desert stars, he asked her if she missed home. She said she wasn't sure where that was anymore. "You carry it in your voice," he said, "wherever you go." They didn't speak for a while after that. The silence wasn't awkward. It was weightless. Something unspoken grew between them. Not romance. Not yet. But something more dangerous. Trust. On the 7th day, she found a door left open, a room small, windowless, cold, and inside it, a wall covered in photographs, not of cities or landmarks, but of people. Faces, names, staff, drivers, translators, servants. Amara stepped closer. Each photo had notes beneath it, languages spoken, challenges faced, decisions made. One photo made her stop. A woman, black, mid-30s, smiling gently. Her name, Farah Alim. Below it, dismissed 2017, rehired in secret, protected. "What is this?" Amara asked aloud. Zayn stood in the doorway. "My ledger," he said. She turned to him. "You track people like this. I remember the ones no one else does." Amara stared at him. "Why?" He stepped closer. His voice was low. "Because power without memory is cruelty." She didn't move. Neither did he. And somewhere between those words, Amara realized she wasn't just visiting his world. She was already part of it. The invitation came without ceremony. No letterhead, no assistant, just Zayn appearing outside Amara's room at dusk, with the call to prayer echoing faintly from the horizon. "Walk with me," he said. No explanation. She followed. They moved through olive groves behind the estate, where the desert softened into dry earth and gold-lit air. Neither spoke at first. Then he said, "Do you ever feel like the world gave you a script, and you were born to tear it up?" Amara looked at him. "All the time." He smiled. "Then I think you'll understand what I'm about to ask." They stopped at a small table set for two beneath a flowering canopy. No staff, no cameras, just a breeze, the setting sun, and silence waiting to be filled. Zayn pulled out a chair for her. She hesitated. "This isn't part of the tour, is it?" she asked. "No," he said. "This is off script. They ate in peace. He let her choose the wine. She let him tell a story from his childhood about being sent to boarding school in England and forgetting how to cry in Arabic. I didn't know how to be soft in that language anymore," he said. Amara stared into her glass. "I was never taught how to be soft. In any language." Zayn's hand rested on the table, not reaching, just present. She didn't move away. "You know what I noticed about you that first night?" he asked. "That I didn't belong," she replied. "That you didn't apologize," he said. "Not for being there, not for speaking up, not even for making the room uncomfortable." She smirked. "Well, if there's one thing I'm good at." "It's honesty," he finished. A long pause. Then he said, "I'm stepping down next month." Amara's eyes widened. "From the company?" He nodded. "They think I'm taking a sabbatical." "I'm not. I'm done." "Why?" He leaned back. "Because power makes you deaf unless someone reminds you how to listen. You did that. I didn't realize how long it had been since someone challenged me without fear." Amara looked away. "It wasn't fear I didn't have. It was nothing left to lose." That silence returned, weightless, charged. She finally asked, "What happens next?" Zayn's voice dropped. "I want to fund something with you. A new kind of institution, not a school, not a company, a platform. For people like you, multilingual, overlooked, unheard. I want to build spaces where truth doesn't need translation." Amara's breath caught. "I'm not a founder," she whispered. "Then be the first," he said. She stared at him, at the man the world bowed to, asking her to build something it had never seen. That night, she couldn't sleep. Not from nerves, from clarity. All her life, she'd been trying to survive a system built to ignore her. Now someone was asking her to help reimagine it. At dawn, she walked out to the courtyard barefoot. The air was cool, still, and Zayn was already there, waiting. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "Neither could I," he admitted. They stood there, two shadows in gold light. And then he said the words, "She wasn't ready for stay." She turned. "Here, no," he said. "In this." Amara's chest tightened. "You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said. "And the rest I want to learn." For the first time, she didn't have an answer. Not in English, not in Arabic. Just the sound of her heartbeat suddenly louder than any applause she'd ever heard. Zayn wasn't the kind of man who announced things. He moved, and the world adjusted. So when he quietly stepped down from his position at the company, there was no press conference. Just a brief, polite statement in a single sentence that lit up every business column across 3 continents. It's time for different voices to lead. He didn't explain what that meant. But people had theories. And when Amara's name started appearing in murmurs, first in whispers, then in interviews, then in questions from reporters who didn't know how to pronounce it properly, those theories turned into headlines. She stayed silent. For a while. Not because she didn't know what to say, but because she knew the world wasn't ready to hear it yet. Not from her. Not from a maid. The gala in London was Zayn's last public event before full transition. He insisted she be there. Not beside him. Not behind him. But speaking. On stage. Amara had written and rewritten her speech 15 times. She'd practiced with Zayn, with herself, in the mirror, in her dreams. But when she walked into that grand hall full of the world's most powerful investors' leaders, critics, her throat dried instantly. Until she saw one face. In the back. Dressed simply, eyes steady. Her mother. Amara hadn't known she was coming. She didn't even know how Zayn had found her. But there she was, and suddenly the words came. Not rehearsed, not polished, but real. I was never supposed to be in this room, she began. And I don't mean that figuratively, I mean literally. People shifted. Some smiled politely. But Amara continued. I used to clean rooms like this. Dust these chandeliers. Polish the silver. I know where the exits are and which doors staff are allowed to use. The air grew still. And I also know that brilliance doesn't only wear tuxedos. That fluency isn't reserved for white men with polished accents. That power doesn't always enter through the front. She paused. My name is Amara. I was born to a teacher and a housekeeper. I speak 6 languages. I clean well. I speak better. And I'm here today because someone powerful didn't see me as a symbol, he saw me as a partner. Zayn didn't flinch. He let her finish. He let her own it. And now she concluded, I'm not asking for permission to be here. I'm building rooms where no one else has to ask either. She stepped down. No applause. Not yet. Just stunned silence. The kind that only truth could create. And then a single clap from her mother, followed by another and another, until the room stood. Zayn never stood. He simply looked at her and nodded. But not everyone celebrated. The backlash was quiet at first, then vicious. Articles questioning her background, accusations that she was elevated for optics. Some even suggested she was romantically involved with Zayn, that he'd lost control, that this was some elaborate PR stunt. Amara ignored it all until one of Zayn's board members made a joke in Arabic on a call thinking she wouldn't understand. She corrected him, fluently, and then hung up. Zayn called her that night. You okay? No, she said. But I'm not afraid. He paused. I can pull back, shield you. No, she said again. You don't get to shield me. You get to stand next to me. And he did. The next morning, every one of those board members received a memo, in Arabic, signed by Amara, and beneath it, a simple sentence in English, if your tongue can't respect us, it won't speak for us. Days later, in a private meeting with global education leaders, someone asked Zayn, why her? He didn't hesitate. Because when she speaks, I remember who I was supposed to be. 6 months later, the first campus opened. It wasn't a university, not a startup, not a tech incubator. It was something entirely new. a space where stories led policy, where language wasn't a barrier, but a bridge, where translators were founders, where maids became mentors, where silence wasn't survival but a seed waiting to speak. Amara named it the Archive of Unwritten Voices. The first time she walked through the courtyard, students greeted her in Arabic, Swahili, Spanish, Urdu, and one little girl in flawless French. Amara smiled at them all, but she stopped when one boy tugged her sleeve. He held out a letter. "My mother said to give this to you." Amara opened it. It was written in shaky English. "Thank you for being visible. I clean offices in Dubai. My daughter now believes she can lead them. Because of you." Amara's hands trembled. She folded the letter and held it to her chest. Zayn walked up behind her, silent. "She's watching you," he said softly. "I know," Amara whispered. They stood side by side in the sunlight. But this time it wasn't just light, it was warmth. Later that day, a reporter asked Zayn the question they all wanted to ask. "What's your relationship with Amara now?" He looked toward the window, where she stood laughing with a group of young women in hijabs and jeans. He turned back to the camera and smiled. "We're fluent in each other," he said. That was all. No scandal, no headline, just fluency. Amara's mother came to visit 3 weeks later. They sat in the garden together. Her mother, once a woman whose hands were calloused from scrubbing, now held a cup of mint tea with quiet pride. She looked at her daughter. "You never stopped speaking," she said. "I never had the luxury," Amara replied. Her mother smiled. "Now, you've given it to others." They sat in silence. Not empty silence. The kind that holds everything. On the final night of the first term, Amara hosted a small gathering. No media, just the students, the staff, the builders, and Zayn. He found her on the balcony afterward, looking up at the stars. He said nothing, just stood beside her, until she broke the silence. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" Zayn looked out. "At first, no," he admitted. "But then I stopped thinking with my title." She turned to him and started thinking with your tongue, he laughed. "Exactly." She nudged his shoulder. "You know, there's still one language you haven't mastered." He raised an eyebrow. "Oh." She stepped closer. "Love," she said quietly. He went still. "And I don't mean romance," she clarified. "I mean the kind that listens without ego, that protects without ownership, that builds without needing credit." Zayn's eyes softened. "Teach me," he whispered. Amara looked at him. And for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was standing beneath anyone. She was standing with someone. And maybe that was the language she'd been searching for all along. Not Arabic, not English, but the language of becoming. The language that didn't need translation, just truth. Sometimes the most powerful voices are the ones we were taught to ignore. Sometimes the truest language isn't one you speak, but one you live. If Amara's journey moved you, if her courage reminded you that no role is too small, no voice too quiet, then let that feeling echo beyond this screen. Tell us, have you ever been underestimated because of how you looked, where you came from, or what you did for a living? We'd love to hear your story. And if you believe that more stories like this deserve to be told, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss the next moment of truth, grace, and justice. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we amplify the voices behind them. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one.